Okay, I got it.
Patrick, the other night we were halfway through segment 2 and my power went off. So I lost them and had to restart everything. Thank God it recorded. And then
He's like, we're restarting.
So we're restarting and we get almost to the end of re-recording the second half of the second segment. And I realized I didn't hit record. So we had to do it a third time.
It was fine. I think the third time was better because it wasn't even the same as the second time.
So Jerry McDaniel asks, is Mary always this cranky? She just took a nap. So, at this time of night.
Right now, I'm not meaning to be. I really did. Like, I'm like a toddler. I just woke up from a nap.
I don't notice it anymore, to be honest with you.
Huh?
I don't notice it anymore, to be honest with you.
Oh, hey.
All right, we're going to go in 3, 2, 1. That's right. You're listening to the No New Friends podcast, voted #1 by our friends and family. We are the podcast for adults who like to laugh at adulting. As always, we'd love for you to connect with us on the Facebook, the Instagram, the YouTube, our email, and all of our links are right there in the show notes, the episode description, that Linktree link. And if you listen to us on Apple, please rate us and give us a 5-star review. My name is Scott. I am the host. With me, as always, my co-host, the queen of the Sunrail, Mary. And our producer, who is not with us, the scumbag reselling hoarder himself, is on vacation in North Carolina, and he found a Publix.
Scumbag.
I know. What a scumbag. He found a Publix today in North Carolina.
Oh, yeah. No, I think I saw that text message and I didn't respond per the usual.
Per the usual. You just need to go back to Ghost Mary.
Ghost Mary.
Because of how much you ghost us. We've got a special guest today, a good friend of mine and Rachel's and my whole family's. I shouldn't say he financed our house because then he's going to get a lot of calls. Good friend Patrick McDaniel from Movement Mortgage. Patrick, how you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing great. Thank you guys so much for having me.
Yeah, I don't have a horn sound effect, so we rely on Mary to provide these sound drops.
And then I do the dolphin one too.
See, that was perfect. Perfect.
Thank you.
Warm lead.
So fun fact, at some point down the road, when we have the time to do it, Patrick and I are going to be starting another podcast. I talked about it a couple of weeks ago. It's the Magic Fanatics podcast. And we have a really cool logo that we designed. And at some point we're going to get that going, but life finds a way to mess everything up.
That was the alternate Jeff Goldblum quote.
Yeah, I was waiting for that connection. And I was like, I don't know how to make it, but somehow or another, life finds a way. Magic Fanatics find a way. I don't know.
Life finds a way to
mess where we're going with this.
So,
why didn't you invite me onto this sports team podcast?
Because Scott, you called it a sports team podcast.
Sports teams. I know what a flagrant foul is now.
Yes.
Do you know the difference between 1 and 2?
The numbers?
The flagrant foul 1 and a flagrant 2.
Right.
Did I just blow your world that there are 2 types of flagrant fouls?
Is this a trick question?
No.
Patrick, Mary just learned what a flagrant foul was about 2 episodes ago, because I was talking about the documentary Malice at the Palace Untold.
Which I did watch, by the way.
What did you think?
I liked it. There was a lot of fighting. Okay, so when I watch hockey, my favorite part is when they drop the gloves and they start like boxing each other. So I really enjoyed it. I did like the other like commentary about how it wrecked their lives and stuff.
Yeah, I could see Mary throwing a cup of beer from the stands just to incite a riot.
Why would you think that I would do that?
Because then you could go back and watch the documentary.
I would never. First of all, do you know how expensive beer is at a sporting event? I am much more financially savvy than that, sir.
Patrick, did you watch that the documentary? What'd you think?
I loved it. There were a few things, because there's so many things that go on in the journal that you don't pay attention to where you were when. Mm-hmm. I remember where I was when I heard about the Malice at the Palace.
I was watching that game live.
Oh, you watched it live?
I watched it live.
I was out at one of my fraternity functions. We were having a formal event, and I remember that night everybody was texting everybody, turn on SportsCenter. And so I remember watching it and thinking, this isn't real. This can't be happening.
This is make believe. This is a new episode
Watching
of the WWE.
Those clips over and over, the one thing I thought was so funny is the guy who tried to justify, who walked down onto the court and had a clenched fist and walked up to
Ron
Artest, and then Ron Artest turned and saw him, and he just deer in the headlights froze. Just like, oh, I'm not going to get away with this, am
I? No.
This is a bad idea.
And then I love Jermaine O'Neal just flying out of nowhere and slipping and then still knocking the guy out.
I remember thinking at the time, that guy is lucky Jermaine O'Neal slipped. And
for sure.
When Steven Jackson said that, I thought, okay, I'm not the only one who thought.
Well, yeah, he said that he would like obliterate the dude.
He would have. He would have, for sure.
I wish that I had that type of confidence that I'd be like, you know what I'm going to do? Go strut on a court. Like, why did he think that was a good idea? I wish I had that.
Because it was
aspire to be like
in that moment, it was a lawless melee. And they didn't think about, there's billions of cameras in here. I'm going to get discovered. It was just...
You mean like the January 6th overtake?
Right.
And people see it? What?
Right. That's a good comparison. The that and the January 6th melee as well. It's about the same thing.
I like how you keep using the word melee.
It's one of my favorite words.
Word for the week?
Mary, you know me well enough. I'll find a word or a phrase and I'll like it. I like how it sounds, and I will find a way to use it in a sentence as many times as possible for one day.
Well,
he's getting his money's worth out of that calendar.
I think you have 3 already for melee.
What'd you say, Patrick?
I said you're getting your money's worth out of that calendar.
Exactly. So what is going on in the mortgage world? Like how housing is going crazy, and any question that I ask and any explanation that you give, dumb it down about 3 notches, because I mean, we've worked together on mortgage and you ask me questions and I'm like, I don't know, let me go get Rachel. And then you'll ask me another question and I'm like, I don't know, let me get Rachel. And he's like, okay, let's start with an easy one. What's your address? And I'm like, I don't know, let me go get Rachel. so dumb it down so we can understand it. Things are crazy right now.
Yes.
Interest rates are down, correct?
Yes. So full disclosure, I'm not a realtor. So when I talk about the housing market, it's coming just from purely observational. I can't talk about market trends or things like that with the housing market. But just to kind of put it in perspective, because I get asked all the time, especially a lot last year about rates. And I say typically, rates, we don't see drastic changes until something drastic happens. So typically in an election year,
like a worldwide pandemic.
Right. So no, it's a perfect example, Scott. So prior to COVID, rates were in the 4s and they were actually creeping towards the 5s. And then COVID hit and we plummeted into the 2s to, basically keep afloat.
Right.
And everybody was jumping at the refinance opportunities, so much so that lenders got overwhelmed and couldn't close all the business that was coming in. So rates increased to almost curb that application influx. And then once everybody kind of got a handle on things, rates went down again. So there were times last year where the rates were just roller coastering from the 2s to the 3s, back to the 4s, back to the 2s. They were going all over the place. Typically also in an election year, we see rates decrease before an election, just because you've got that uncertainty in the market. We don't know whose fiscal policy is going to be in place. After an election, regardless of who gets elected, I always have to say this, regardless of who gets elected, rates will go up.
Sure.
Because often people go, oh, it's because so-and-so won. I go, it didn't matter. What happened is we got certainty back in the market. We knew what fiscal policy was going to be in place. It might not have been a great fiscal policy, or it might have been a great fiscal policy. That didn't sway the rates. It was just that we now know who's in charge.
Right.
We didn't really see that this year. Normally we see it within probably about a week after the election. This year it took several months to hit, and then they started creeping up, but they're still incredibly low. I mean, we're still quoting purchase rates right at around 3%, give or take a little bit. Which when I bought my first house in 2012, I was at 3.25. So we're talking 9 years later, we're still hovering right in this range.
Right.
And this speaks to the movie buff in me. I never paid attention to stuff like that in the movies when they talk about mortgage rates until I got into the industry.
Sure.
If you go back and watch the original Ghostbusters,
Yes.
And Dan Aykroyd and Bill Murray are leaving the building, the bank, because they're going to go buy the building. And Dan Aykroyd's arguing like, you didn't even negotiate. It's 18%. The reality is in the 80s, those were the rates.
Wow.
So to feel like we're at 3%, I mean, I talk with a lot of realtors and homeowners that purchased home in the 80s, and they go, look, yeah, it's 3%, and a couple months ago is in the twos, but it's still 15% or 12% lower than where I was when I bought my first home in the 80s.
Wow.
So,
I can relate to once you get into something, you notice it in the movies. Since I became an unemployed broke podcaster, I notice every lazy bum that's laying on the couch watching television in the movies. So like Thor in Avengers Endgame, I can relate to the melting ice cream Big Lebowski look. So I'm with you on that. So how does this work with because now the prices of the homes are skyrocketing, I guess. And I know you can't speak to necessarily the market trends on that, but
look, I'm just saying I can't find an affordable home in Lake Mary at all. Try to find one.
That's not a new thing, Mary. It's you're never going to find affordable housing in Lake Mary.
Well, yeah. So really what we're seeing, what we saw through most of last year and still into this year, is a lot of people being able to move from other states and keep their income the same. The way I kind of joke about it is you get to keep Northeast money, but now you get the Southern living expenses.
Right.
So you got people in New York and Pennsylvania that can keep their salary the same, but they were told you can work remotely. So they were selling their homes there, moving, what we see, moving to Florida,
right.
Being able to buy homes cash. So your average home buyer in Florida that was doing maybe a 5% down loan was going up against a cash offer that was offering $10,000 more than what anybody else was willing to offer because they had the cash and they could do it. So we're still seeing that. And
seal the borders is what you're saying of Florida.
What was that?
No, I'm just kidding. I'm totally kidding.
Build a wall.
Build a wall around Florida.
Nobody's allowed to come.
Well, and
they're taking our houses.
Well, what hurt too was homes couldn't be built. We didn't have, construction companies put new home construction on hold. So you had less homes that were coming on the market. So you had a shortage of inventory and an influx of buyers, which just created the perfect storm for people who were looking to sell their homes and get top dollar.
Scott, you could sublease your closets probably. I bet you could sublet a few of those.
Yeah, I know. Have you seen the size of my master closet?
That's what I'm saying, except for it would be an insurance nightmare because if you don't dry off before you get out of the shower, someone will slip and fall for sure.
I do have a
nightmare.
That episode Mary's referring to another episode where we were talking about quirks and pet peeves. And I was talking about drying off in the shower. You have to dry off in the shower because drips happen and then I slip. And Mary, you were so focused on me walking by the shower as the shower was occurring. No, that's not what I'm talking about. It's if Rachel's reaching for a towel that I haven't provided for her and she drips on the floor between the bath mat and where the toilet is, I could slip on it.
That's what I'm saying.
10 minutes later. I'm
telling you, just get some slippery when wet signs. Somebody call Bon Jovi in and get it taken care of.
There we go.
But you could sublet that closet and you wouldn't be unemployed anymore. You're welcome.
If I had to guess, Scott, do you have, I'm sure you've seen the ads, but do you have that bloody bath mat, the white one that when you step on it gets wet, it looks like
I don't. Footprints? I don't, but I'm sure that will be on my Halloween wish list.
I'm surprised you don't have it yet. This dude was already texting me about his Halloween display that he's working on. He's already been to Spirit.
Yeah, I was at Spirit this past weekend. I have a great house for Halloween decorating and I go all out. And it's a great neighborhood. Patrick, you've seen E.T. The trick-or-treating scene in E.T. That's my neighborhood.
Yeah.
So, and people get into decorating. So back to
trick-or-treating is one of the reasons we chose the neighborhood we live in. Is we would take when our oldest daughter Quinn was young, we would take her here. My parents live in the neighborhood.
You say when your youngest daughter or when your oldest daughter was young. She's what, 9?
Well,
now?
She's 8.
So she's still young.
Like 2.
Okay, gotcha. Younger.
She's going off to college. It's fine.
They would they block off the roads so that you don't have to worry about cars coming through. Everybody was trick-or-treating. There were houses that they would say, well, we don't have candy, but we got juice boxes for the kids and adult beverages for the parents. And I'm like, this is amazing, you know?
Yes.
The neighborhood we were living in over by UCF, nobody trick-or-treated. We wouldn't even have anybody stop by the house.
You get sprayed with a sprinkler system when you walk up. They like turn them on and get out of here.
Oh, that's funny. So Patrick, what advice would you give to any first-time home buyers, especially right now with interest rates being so low and housing prices being high?
Yeah, so I actually do work with a lot of first-time home buyers. The first thing I always recommend would be talk to a lender before you choose your realtor, mainly because.
And that's interesting because I think a lot of people get excited about the process and they're like, let me go find a realtor.
Yes, they absolutely do. And the tough part is then the realtor's going, well, are you pre-approved? No. Okay, well, now I can't help you until you do that step. So what you need to do is talk to a lender first so you can really find out what your buying power is. So you feel comfortable with the budget, so you feel comfortable with the out-of-pocket expenses. And then, you know, if you already have a realtor in mind, or much like a realtor can refer a lender can refer you also to realtors that they feel you would best fit with, just like realtors would say, well, I've got 3 lenders, but based on your personality, I have a feeling that you're going to gravitate towards this person maybe is more hands-on, takes more time to explain things. And since you're a first-time buyer, I feel like that's going to be best served for you. So for first-time buyers, I don't recommend you do your reading online. I recommend you sit down and talk with a lender. When I talk to my first-time buyers, I tell them, feel free to talk to other lenders. I'm not going to tell you don't go talk to anybody else. But early on when I got into really in the finance world, and Scott, you'll appreciate this. So being a movie buff growing up, when I got into banking, I realized that there are no good bankers in any movies outside of Yes Man.
Right.
There's never a positive experience with a banker. And then when I got into mortgages, I went, well, even that positive experience is now out the window from Yes Man, because there are no good mortgage people in movies.
Right.
The scene you always see is somebody saying, I took your advice and now I'm going to lose my home and my family's going to be on the street. That's the way it's always painted. So when I got into mortgages, I decided, like, whether it's in my best interest or not, I can sleep at night if I'm giving sound financial advice. So I've had people come up to me and say, well, Patrick, this is what you quoted me, and this is what somebody else is quoting me. And if that's legitimately the best deal for them, I will tell them that, because I would much rather them be able to say, I didn't use Patrick, but I appreciated him. He gave me a lot of information, start there, than, well, I used Patrick, but it kind of felt like I was buying a used car throughout the whole experience.
Right.
So I kind of, in a way, I stole that from Miracle on 34th Street.
I love it.
I'm going to do the right thing.
So if our listeners are looking to buy a new home, how could they get a hold of you to be their lender, or to write their mortgage?
Yeah. So much like everybody else, I do everything through my cell phone nowadays. So what we'll do is I'll give you, well, you have my contact info, but maybe we'll put it in the Facebook post and that for that information.
Yeah, I can do that.
But again, the most important thing is choose people you trust, who you're going to work with, realtor and lender. If at any point you don't trust who you're working with, you need to reevaluate if you need to be working with somebody else, because it's too important a purchase. I mean, we don't all go around making $100,000 purchases, multiple $100,000 purchases every day.
What?
So,
well, Mary's kids do.
My kids do, just on their cheese and compote, though.
So for our listeners, Patrick wrote the mortgage for our house that we just bought 2 years ago, and obviously he's a friend of ours. But that aside, Patrick worked through an entire weekend to make things happen and was Johnny on the spot. I never had a hard time getting a hold of him, and really kind of the personal touch that you want when going through the house buying process, because it can be very, very stressful, especially when you found one that you loved. And we went the other way. We went with the realtor first, and then we found a house. We're ready to put an offer in and had to kind of scramble because we didn't want to lose the house. So Patrick is Johnny on the spot with that. So contact Patrick with Movement Mortgage. And then once you have that and you need homeowners insurance, give my boy Steve Crutchfield a call at S Crutchfield at farmersagent.com.
I cannot with you.
How did you not know that I wasn't going to
think that I don't like him, and that's not even true.
It's
you've ruined it for me. You have.
This is how the business of podcasting goes. You know, you have.
That's weird because I'm in the business of podcasting, and
well, you're the talent. You don't have to worry about dropping ads or anything like that. Did you see I sent you it was a video of Peter Griffin making fun of podcasters. Yes. I'll have to play that. So that's us. That's us. Anytime you can put a shameless plug in there. There it is. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Patrick's going to hang around with us for our shenanigans, and we're going to be talking about How I Met Your Mother at some point this episode, because Patrick is a huge fan. I am a huge fan, and I've been waiting to have this discussion with him. So
Scott's a big fan. Patrick's a big fan. I've heard of it. It's going to be fine.
So we're going to be talking about that a little bit later on, but fall is in the air. It's coming, and I want to talk all about what excites us about fall coming. All about what we like. What am I trying to say?
Sound it out.
Everything that we like about fall when we come back. You're listening to the No New Friends podcast.